Good morning from Rose Red Homestead. Look what I found in my refrigerator today. I was going through things in the refrigerator and this had been pushed way to the back. This is a Costco chicken, rotisserie chicken, and we've had at least one meal from it, but it is about to expire. And so what better thing to do with it than make some chicken soup? So that's what our adventure will be today. When we come back, we will get started. The first thing you might notice is that I have some carrots here, and the carrots in this light, whatever this light is, makes the carrots look a funny color, but they truly are carrots, as you can see through the glass here. And some celery, and I have some poultry seasoning, and I have my Instant Pot. So we're going to start with the Instant Pot and actually make the soup, and then we're going to make 7 quarts of chicken soup. So I'm going to start by taking the lid off of the Instant Pot and setting it aside. And I've taken the top off this chicken and I'm just going to drain all of this good stuff right into the iPot. There's a lot of gelatinous stuff sticking to the bottom. And there is still some in here, so I'm going to take some water and rinse out this container and pour it all right into the Instant Pot. We don't want to lose any of that good stuff for the good flavoring. Next, I'm going to cut this chicken up. There's still a lot of good breast meat on this chicken. And I don't need to break it into or cut it into really small pieces. What I'm going to do is just put it right here in the Instant Pot. We call it an iPot. That's because we have iPhone and this and that, so it's just easy to call it an iPot. And so here's a wing going in, and I'll cut through this leg and thigh and just break it apart. Part of the back came with it, so I'm going to break those 2 pieces apart and put it in. And then here is the breast piece. And I'm just going to cut straight down through the breast piece. Oh, here's a wing. I want to get that wing off first, and I'll break it off. There's a lot of string attached here, so I'm going to get rid of that. Here's the back. Here's the breast. We still have about 1/2 of a breast left. So I want this in a little bit of a smaller piece, so I'll do this. Now on my cutting board, there's a lot of really good stuff too, so I'm just going to put that right in here. And then I'm going to fill it up to the fill line with water. What I'm wanting to do in the Instant Pot is to soften up the meat and the bones so it will be easy to debone. And I also want to make some really flavorful broth, chicken broth that I can put right in the jars when we're getting ready to make the soup. Now, just in case there wasn't quite enough meat, we like very meaty soups. I thawed a couple of extra breasts last night. And these are just thin cut chicken breasts from Costco. So they're quite small and very thin. I'm just going to drop those in, and these are raw, and that will be just fine because by the time everything is all cooked, everything will be cooked and the flavors will be a lot in the broth. So next thing I'm going to do is put the lid on the, I have it facing outward so you can see it, so I have to think backwards here. So the lid is now on the pot. I'm going to plug it in. And turn it on to manual. And it looks like it's set for 5 minutes, so I'm going to put this up to 30 minutes. That's how long I want this to process. It will be nice and delicious then. Oops, I went too far. So there's 30 minutes, and we're ready to go. And I made sure that my pressure regulator was in the closed position so it will hold the steam inside. So this is going to take about, that beep means that it's now processing. So it will take a few minutes to heat up, and then it will process for 30 minutes, and I'm going to let it do a natural cool down. And at that point in time, I'm going to open up the Instant Pot. I will remove the chicken and strain the broth. And by the time we come back, I will have the chicken all deboned and cut in pieces, ready to start the canning process. So I'll see you in just a few minutes. It has been about an hour and a half. The chicken cooked completely to the tender stage, and there was about a half of a pot of beef broth once I pulled all the chicken out. I've boned the chicken, and I have this bowl of pieces of chicken. A lot of it is white meat, which is what we just love. I weighed it on my Handy's kitchen scale. I hope you all have kitchen scales. I can't operate a kitchen without one. I always set mine on grams. I have a science background, and so I really like metric, and so grams is easiest for me. This chicken weighed just over 800 grams. I divided by 7 because I'm going to be doing 7 quarts. So it's going to be, roughly between 110 and 115 of grams of meat per jar. And I'll show you how I do that to make it work out fairly even. We're going to be adding celery and carrots, and then we're going to be adding a teaspoon of poultry seasoning to each of those jars, and then we will be ready to seal them up and get them out in the canner. I have the canner outside. I just barely turned the heat on so that it will get up to the simmer point, which is about where we want it. Now what I did with the broth that was left in this iPot, the Instant Pot, I'm sorry, I call it iPot, is that I added more water and some more chicken bouillon to give me enough broth, I'm hoping, to be able to fill up all of these jars when we're done. So I think that we are ready to get started. So what I'm going to do is move the chicken right here, and I'm going to place a jar on my scale, and then when it gets up to speed, I'm going to zero it out so that, I need to zero it out again, so that I can add about 110 to 115 grams of meat. Oh, too much. Because I want to evenly distribute the meat. Watch more carefully this time. Okay, that's about right there. And then to this, I'm going to add about a half a cup of celery, and this is fresh celery, and about a half a cup of carrots, and a teaspoon. Oh, this is a new jar of poultry seasoning. Jim always keeps me a good supply. So I'll be adding a teaspoon of this poultry seasoning. And that's all there is to it. And then I will be putting the broth in all at the same time. So I'm going to set this one aside and pull up another one. Make sure it's zeroed out. And then add about 110 to 115 grams of meat. That's right on the money. Half a cup of celery, half a cup of chopped carrots. I'm forgetting onion. Just a second, let me get the onion out. Oh, I can't forget onion. And again, these are the dehydrated onions from Walla Walla Sweets. Putting about a tablespoon of onion in. And then a teaspoon of poultry seasoning. And this one is ready to set aside. These jars I've had in the dishwasher on the dry cycle. They're washed and clean, and they are warm. This is by far more meat than you get in the canned varieties that you buy at the stores. So, some celery. And you may notice quite a few celery leaves with this celery. I really enjoy the flavor of celery. And so I use the inside celery hearts because they have the parts that have a lot of the leaves, because those carry the strongest part of the celery flavor. So I really like that as well. Oh, I get busy talking here and I forget to put in the seasoning. Okay, this third one. Zero the scale. Okay, that's perfect, 117 grams, that will do. Celery. Carrots. Onion. And poultry seasoning. This goes so quickly. You know, there's just a good feeling associated with when you have something like a Costco chicken or turkey for Thanksgiving, that you just don't throw out the bones, that you save it to cook down and make soup or whatever it is you would like to do. Okay, here we go. And just use up all parts of it, so the only thing that you end up throwing away is the bones. And I like that feeling, and I know that I get that from growing up in my mother's household. She raised a large family. I'm firstborn of 9 children, and Dad was a college professor, so money was always an issue. So we learned all of the homemaking arts, sewing and cooking, bread making, pie making, the whole thing. And it was really a pleasure to grow up in their home. I was baking bread by the time I was 10 and making pies by the time I was 12. Celery, carrots, onions, and seasoning. Now, I've made this soup many times before. We make it after Thanksgiving with our leftover turkey. And then anytime we do a Costco rotisserie chicken, we leave enough meat on the bones so that I can always do some leftover soup. And then we use up this soup really fast. So I'm making 7 quarts today. And they'll be gone in a month, easy. So I always like to have some on hand. This is a great thing to have out there on our shelves. Seasoning and onions. So I believe everything is done. I'm going to go ahead and distribute the last of the carrots and celery here so that we have no waste. That is another thing. Whoops, I just dropped that lid. I don't want to step on it. Another thing that I learned growing up was use what you have. Make use of every single thing you possibly can. And so that's exactly what I do. And a little more celery in each of these. I love celery, so this will be great. And the last little bit right here. Now I can set the scale aside. Now what we want to do is fill up all these jars with the broth. And like I said, I made extra broth just by adding water to the chicken broth as it cooked, and then added chicken bouillon and tasted it to be sure that it was flavorful. So I'm going to now add this chicken broth up to, this looks like really yummy broth, up to that first rim so that I am leaving 1 inch of head space. I don't know why this measuring cup always leaks. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Oh my gosh, that's hot. So I'm going to grab a cloth here. Now, this is a quart of exact soup. In other words, when I get ready to fix this, there won't be, I don't add any more water or anything. It's not concentrate. So this will be a quart of chicken soup for us. Now, for those of you that have seen our videos on meals in a bag, you can probably figure out that I could pack this one in a bag with either rice or noodles and have chicken noodle soup ready to go. Just gonna put another jar over here to catch the drips. How about that? I think I'm going to have enough broth. Great. And we will process these out in the canner for 90 minutes and then pull them out. Now with this chicken soup, we always have fresh fruits and vegetables available. As I've mentioned in just about every video, Jim and I are focusing on a healthy lifestyle, so we always have fresh fruits and veggies available. But I will sometimes fix sourdough biscuits to go along with our soup in the evening, if I'm not too tired when I come home from work, that is. Otherwise, we'll have soup and some fruit, or we can also have a slice of my artisan bread. I'm also going to do a video on artisan bread here coming up. Okay, now the last jar, the one that was catching all the, oh, this is just going to be about perfect. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is just lift this pan out and pour directly from the pan. Oh my goodness. I have maybe 1/8 of a cup left. So it was perfect. Great, great, great. All right, now I'm going to grab a paper towel, wet it with warm water and run around the top edges here. Okay, we got all of these. Do this one again because it got leaked on. And then put these lids on. These have been washed and air dried. Putting the rings on, finger tight. Okay, we have 7 quarts ready to go out to the canner. I'll meet you out at the canner in just a moment. So I have already loaded the canner. We'll turn the heat up, and as soon as it starts venting really well, we'll be back after it's vented for 10 minutes and show you how to put the weights on and that sort of thing. All right, so here we are on this snowy day, and I'm about to put the weight back on the canner. So this is all there is to it. There's no danger at all to do this. You just put it right on there. The needle on my canner is already rising. The air vent lock is already up. So we should see this start to rise. I am going to turn this down lower. And we are going to let this process for 90 minutes since these are quarts. And chicken soup, of course, is low acid, so it has to be pressure canned for 90 minutes in terms of quarts. So I'm going to process this and then let it cool down naturally, and then we'll be back to pull these out of the canner and see what the final product looks like. I can't wait. See you soon. The canner has finished processing now. It's been going for 90 minutes at 13 pounds pressure, actually between 13 and 15 is where we hold it. And it has cooled down naturally. The airlock vent has fallen, and the needle is now on 0. So it looks like everything is good. I'm going to tilt this just to be sure there's no more steam escaping, and there isn't. So it looks like we're going to be able to open this up. And as always, I open the lid away from me so the steam goes the other direction. Okay, so come on over and take a look inside the canner. Oh, look at that. It's beautiful. Meat down at the bottom, broth in the middle, veggies at the top. And the water is almost perfectly clear inside the canner. So I'm going to put these over on this little rack. It is freezing cold today. It's been snowing all day, and it's too cold to keep these out here. So as soon as I get these out of the canner, those have both sealed. It must have cooled down pretty quickly. Even though these are steamy hot, these have already popped. Yep. We will be moving these in the house because it's too cold. It's freezing out here, literally. I don't think this one has popped. Nope. Oh, it just popped. This one hasn't popped either. Hear the difference? That one should pop in a minute too. And this one hasn't popped. Okay, and there we have 7 beautiful quarts of home canned chicken soup. In fact, it's so freezing today, we just might open one of these up tonight for dinner. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time for another adventure with Rose Red Homestead.